What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing something a little different. As you can see, we are not on the water. I'm actually recovering from surgery that I had 2 weeks ago, so I am unable to get on the water. But we just wanted to sit down and go over some of the baits that we like to use, what our confidence baits are, and ultimately, if we had one bait to pick, what that would be. And that is for both smallmouth and largemouth, because all these baits we have caught both smallmouth and largemouth. But before we get going, if you hadn't already, please hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, drop us a comment down below, and especially today, let us know if there's something that you use that we don't list today. We would like to try. Like I said, these are our confidence baits. These is what we use around here, and primarily you're going to see just a couple of them today that we really use in a lot of our videos. So stick with us. What we have picked is 8 plastic baits. So we got a bracket. We're going to go through. We got 4 initial matchups, and then we're going to go from there with what we pick. You might be surprised where this goes as to what we like. So we're looking forward to this one. But our first matchup is a Hellgrammite.
We really like to use Hellgrammites in southern West Virginia because smallmouth feed on them basically everywhere in the state.
We do. We went out on a trip not long ago where we used the Hellgrammite, and we had a very good day. And we've got it actually paired up with a creech style bait. This is something I'm not don't have a lot of confidence in. I've not used a whole lot in my fishing. This particular one is the Berkeley Pit Boss. It's something I want to get into more. You know, it's a technique that I don't really use a whole lot of, but that's something I want to get more into. So our first matchup is the Nico Hellgrammite versus any kind of creature bait, and you may have one that you like. But when we're looking at these two baits and we're picking one for us, what are we going to pick between these two?
We're going to pick the Hellgrammite.
We're going to pick the Hellgrammite. That's what we have confidence in. As you saw, this one here is by Nico. That one that we're showing is the 3-inch. We use that for the smallmouth primarily. I will throw it in a local lake when it's a heavily pressured lake. I'll throw it and I'll catch some largemouth, but I also can upsize. I got the 4 1/4 inch, and we've caught both, so I have confidence in both. But between those two baits, our confidence is in the Hellgrammite, and it makes it past this first round. Next up in our second matchup, we have a swim bait. Like here, I just have a 3 1/4 inch Kitech swim bait. I like to use it smallmouth fishing in our local streams. It does pretty good. Caught a few fish. It's still not as great a confidence bait as I would like, but I definitely like using it, throwing it on a jig head and just cranking through those rocks for those smallmouth. But we got it paired up against a
worm.
A worm.
This is a Zoom. What is it?
It's a trick worm. This particular one he's got is a Zoom
worm.
trick worm.
I've used better baits, but it's still okay.
And it's a confidence thing. Now, I've used more of the worms than he has. You know, when we throw like curly tail, any kind of worm. Now we don't have the stick baits. Those, you know, those we got that in its own category. But as far as worms, you know, I like on one of our local lakes. It's plumb full of lily pads. I like getting my kayak. I'll get right in the middle of the lily pads, and I'll take a little finesse worm, take that trick worm or a little curly tail worm, and I'll throw him behind them lily pads and catch fish. But if we were to pick which one we would prefer to use out of these, what would we pick?
We would pick the worm.
We'd pick the worm just because we feel it's more versatile. I mean, what we do in our situation, not to discredit the swim bait because it's caught a lot of fish, but for what we do, we would go with the worm. Next matchup we have stick baits versus crawls. What you see here, it's just the Nico crawl. This is a new bait that I've used this year, but any kind of crawl, whatever your favorite crawl might be, this is just the ones that we are using this year. Again, smallmouth, a lot of streams around here, so that's why I have this one, and I like the Nico product. That's for sure, as we have the Hellgrammite and fished with him for a couple of years. But the crawl, it's nice dragging through them rocks for him smallmouth. I've even thrown it down here back in the early spring when the water was starting to warm up, the fish were moving up. I was throwing the crawl, was catching largemouth on it. They were feeding on those, and I definitely caught a few. Bait I don't have a great deal of confidence in because I've not thrown it a whole lot, but I definitely like it and will be throwing it more. We got it paired up with stick baits.
Stick baits are probably one of the most used baits by fishermen across the world, probably.
Yeah, I mean, they're very popular.
I mean, very versatile because you can throw them on a wacky rig, Texas rig, Ned rig.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do with it.
I'd say stick baits have caught more fish than a lot of bait.
Oh yeah, they're stick baits and worms. They've been around, and you know, those stick baits you can't really go wrong with them. I mean, there's so much that you can do with them, that's for sure. And that's something I've got more into this year. And throwing that wacky rig, something I've not before this year. I've never really thrown that wacky rig, and I enjoyed it this year, especially early on. But when we paired up the stick baits and the crawl, and we were picking what we liked the best, we chose what?
Stick bait. We
chose stick bait just because of the versatility. I mean, the crawl, so much you can do with it. I mean, you can throw it on a jig head, you can Texas rig it, you can throw it weightless. I mean, it's very buoyant, this particular one, so a lot that you can do with it, but we still are going to go with the stick bait. And our final matchup for this particular round, we have a lizard and we have a frog going up against one another. Here's the frog. This one here is just a Z-Man. What is it? It's the goat toad Z. I have the Zoom horny toads. I like to throw those. I'm in the lake down here. It's got the lily pads. Usually I'm throwing a hollow body frog though. I don't throw the soft plastic frog that often. Sometimes I'll use them mostly as trailers on my buzz baits, but I do fish them just by themselves. Have caught a few fish. Again, not my most used technique, but you know, I know a lot of people like throwing frogs, so we had to include it. We got the frog paired up with probably one of our favorite baits.
A lizard, specifically Zoom.
Specifically Zoom.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I caught my PB largemouth on a Zoom lizard, and it's done really good every year.
It has. We were on vacation, and he was throwing just a 6-inch Zoom lizard. Caught his personal best largemouth, about 3.5 pounds. It was 18 inches long, so happy for him on that. But that's what we throw. We'll throw, you know, the 4-inch if we're fishing for smallmouth. I'll throw at 6-inch even for smallmouth, but primarily I'll throw at 6-inch when I'm largemouth fishing in a local lake. I will go up to an 8. We have some 8-inch lizards, and I will throw that 8, just depending on the time of the year or what kind of bite that I am looking for. But overall, that 6-inch lizard does good. But when we paired these two up together, and if we had to pick one, what are we picking?
The lizard.
We're going with the lizard. That's been a staple in our bag. If I had one lure in my bag that's always there, it's the lizard.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. We got our second round. Out of the first round, when we were picking, we picked a hellgrammite, a worm, a stick bait, and a lizard for our winners. What we would pick moving forward on those, not to discredit the ones that didn't make it, because we still use them quite often. But our next matchup, our first matchup here that we have in the second round, we have a hellgrammite versus the worm. So if we were picking out of these two, again, tough choice, but we did have a clear favorite. But first, again, that worm, as you see here, I just have a Zoom trick worm out. Very versatile. Use it all the time. Throw it on a shaky head Texas rig. I'll even go with a finesse worm. Drop shot it. Catches a lot of fish. Curly tail worms, you know, can't go wrong with a worm. Now, it's one of those that's been around forever, ever and ever. But if we were picking between a worm and the hellgrammite, what are we going with?
We're going with the hellgrammite. Just because it's easier to fish.
It is. We're going with the hellgrammite once again. That has become one of our favorite baits. It's very, very durable. It's expensive per package, but when you look at the cost per fish and how long they last, I mean, typically the only way I lose one of the hellgrammites is if we get a hang up.
Yeah, they are extremely durable. So That's why we like them.
Yeah, I mean, there's other soft plastic, you can take it and you're going to tear it pretty easy.
Yeah.
Those Zoom or those Helgramites, man, they're tanks. They get the job done, and they catch us fish. So that's why, not discrediting the worm, but those Helgramites catch us a lot of fish.
Yeah.
All right, our second matchup in this second round, we had stick baits going up against lizards. Again, here's just a this one here's a Bass Pro Shop bait, just a 6-inch stick worm. Again, I like it. Wacky rig it, Texas rig it, throw it all around. You go up in size, go down in size. That's for sure. A lot of different uses for the stick bait, and caught so much in the way of fish over the last several years, and won a lot of people a lot of money. So can't go wrong with the stick bait, that's for sure. But we got it paired up
with the Zoom Lizard. We just caught so many fish on this. I mean, I think it was the first thing I've ever thrown.
Yeah, when it came to artificial baits, that was one of the first things that I threw, and it came from when I grew up. I remember, going to the bait shop, and my dad buying lizards at the bait shop. And then as the years went by, they just got more and more expensive. Really didn't feel like getting out in the hollows or the hollers in the water and catching them. So I found an alternative, started using those Zoom lizards, and it's been on ever since. They're a staple. But if we had to pick between a stick bait and a lizard, what are we going with?
We're going with the lizard.
We're going with the lizard once again. That's confidence bait. I can throw at pretty much any time of year, really, and I'm going to catch fish on it and have thrown it most of the year and caught fish. All right, here we go. We have made it to the last round of picks as to what we're going to choose. And boy, this one's a tough one for both of us, as these two baits are what we love to use. Again, let us know what you like. What is your go-to bait? That's for sure. But when we look at these two baits, again, just the Nico Helgramite. Love the Helgramites, and there's so many other brands that are out there. I got some Bass Pro ones in my box. I've used Yum since they've come out with some, but when it comes to Helgramites, these Nikos are on point just because of the durability. Again, we got it paired up
with the Zoom Lizard.
With the Zoom Lizard. I mean, not a whole lot to say. We've said it all coming through. But if we were to pick just one bait out of these two baits, if we were putting these side by side and picking what we wanted, we're actually going to be going with the Helgramite. You're like, wow, really? We really like it. I knew I wanted them for smallmouth. A lot of what we fish here are small creeks and rivers, and we catch fish with them. And I've used them in the lakes around here and caught fish, so it has become my new go-to bait. I'll throw that on just a little jig head. You can even drop shot it. There's a lot of different ways you can fish this bait. You can do it weightless and bring it across the top of the water, and it does just fine. But when it comes to soft plastics and we have to pick one, it's going to be that Nico Helgramite is what we're picking. Just because of what it does for us in our application, in our part of the world. And it may be wrong, it's everybody's different in their fishing, but this is what we really like. And a few years ago, when we really first started using them, he caught his PB smallmouth. It was about 4.5 pounds. It was a nice smallmouth, and ever since then we've been hooked.
Yeah.
But that is our soft plastic challenge. That's what we're going with. Again, all these are in our bags. All these get used all the time. So not to take away from any other baits, this is just what our confidence baits are. And I promise you that lizard right now, if you go look at our setups that we have, there's a Helgramite tied on and there's lizards tied on. We don't go anywhere without them, regardless of where we fish, because they both catch fish. Appreciate you guys coming along on this journey. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. Let us know what else you may want to see. We got another video that's going to be coming up at Related, we're going to take a look at hard baits and what we like there. When it comes to our fishing, we mostly do soft plastics. I have a few confidence baits that I have, like chatter baits and spinner baits, and we have the top waters, of course. But when it comes to fishing, mainly our setups are finesse. We fish soft plastics a lot. But appreciate you coming along. Till next time, God bless.